Alright, so we got a really nice 10-point rack here, but what's wrong with it? So you look on the bottom side here, you guys can see there's a little hole, and that's from when they get their velvet. These little insects will bore little holes in there and leave a little dent like that. But that's not what I'm talking about. Then you look over to this side, and you can see a little drop tine bump didn't quite form. But again, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is this whole tine right here is actually fake. And I'm sure a lot of you guys didn't notice this, but what we did was we put a 2-part epoxy down and put a little wire in between it, and then we put a little stain on it, and it turned out really well, as you guys can see. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. We're gonna be taking a really, really old, dried out antler and restoring it and making it look like new. So again, what we're trying to do is make things look natural. We're not trying to make this tine look 2 inches taller than the others. We're just trying to make it look like what the antler would look like without any abrasions or, let's say, a missing tine. All right, so with all that being said, we are gonna work on a very, very extreme case today. This antler was found lying in the deserts of New Mexico. My dad actually found it, and as you guys can tell, it is just kind of brutal here. The shape that this antler's in. So it's very dried out. We might have to do a little sanding with it to try and smooth it out because it's very, very rough right now. And then we're gonna obviously color it. And we wanna make this thing look what it would look like on the deer. So again, not trying to modify them to look bigger than they should be or whatever. So as you guys can see, we already have the wires in here on all 3 antlers. What we did was we took a drill bit, very, very simple. We took a drill bit, screwed it in there, just like that, just enough for the wire to fit in, and then you guys can see, we took a little super glue to it. We took a little super glue to the wire there, and that's really all it took to get the wires in there. So now let's see what we can do as far as coloration and making her look realistic. Okay, so what we're gonna work on first is this little tip here. It's kind of a good warm up for the antler here. So we got our 2 epoxies here. We got the Apoxy sculpt. There's an A and a B compound, so what we're gonna do is take a little marble size from each of them and then mix them together. You gotta mix them really well, and then we're gonna start working on that first antler. Okay, so we got compound A and compound B. Both of these will be in the description if you guys are interested. And we got an equal amount of each, and now I'm just mixing it up for about 2 minutes here. You just gotta make sure they're both equally mixed up. All right, and so you guys can see we got our little ball here. Now what we're gonna do is obviously take it to the antler here and start molding it. So I got a little bit too much on here, and that's not a big issue. What I'm gonna do is just pull a little chunk off here. And then what you're gonna wanna do is just make sure this is very, very slippery here. I do not have enough water on there, so you just wanna be able to really sand it, almost sand it down with your hand. Alright, and we got the 1 antler down there. We're gonna start working on the next shortest one here, which would be that one. So again, same sort of thing, but a little bit bigger here. What I'm doing is taking half and half yet again. Gonna need a lot more this time. And so what I've been figuring out is it's definitely easier to pull clay off. So it's definitely worth going a little overboard and then having to pull it off, rather than having to add on, because adding on is just really tough. Okay, so I got my little slab here, and now I'm just gonna kind of skewer it like a hot dog. Sort of push her right down, and then we gotta get to work molding here. All right, and antler number 2 down. Onto the long one. Now before I get too far here, this one's gonna be a really interesting one to do because it's got these points here, so it's gonna be a fun mold, sort of working it around that. These other ones were pretty clean breaks versus this guy being, you know, kind of sharp there. So this has certainly been a really fun project so far. You know, it's sort of the side to hunters that a lot of people don't think about when it comes down to, like, you know, involving arts and stuff like that. It's actually really, really fun. You know, it can apply to anything, whether you shoot a deer and you want to put it on the wall, or whether you just want to, you know, work on completing an antler like this guy, like we just found a random shed somewhere. So you know, it's really interesting to sort of bring out the other element of hunting, and it's something really fun to do on a winter day. You know, you're kind of bored wondering what to do and you want to do something a little artsy. Here you go. Alright, looks like all three are pretty darn close to done here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to let it dry about 12 hours and then get to painting it. Alright, so as you guys can see, we got the clay done here. We got the 3 points and then the little stud at the bottom there. So what we did was we tested the stain on another sort of dried out antler we found in the same area. And it really didn't turn out that well. So what we're gonna try with this guy is putting a little white paint or a little white primer on it and then go with the brown stain. So let's get started. Alright, so we got the white paint dried now, and this should work really well. Normally we wouldn't do this in any other case, but this is what this antler looked like before, just very, very dry here, and you guys can see it's crusty and just falling apart. So what we did was we put this white paint on there to kind of make it a little more sealable, a little more like an antler, like the white underbase of an antler. Now we're gonna put on the brown stain to make this guy look like an actual antler now. Alright, so we got pretty much the whole antler painted here. I might do a little bit more on the bottom here just to get it a little darker, because usually the antlers are typically a little darker towards the bottom. But I might let it dry here and then look at putting another layer on, because it might dry a different color, but it's looking really good. You guys can see it's really coming together here. So here is the final result of the antler, and honestly it turned out really, really nice. You guys can see there's barely a line here where the clay picks up and the actual antler is, and the coloration turned out awesome. May still do a little touch up here and there if I decide to, but all in all it was a really, really fun winter project to do, and I would definitely recommend trying it for yourselves. And that is the end of this week's episode of Tried Outdoors. I hope you all enjoyed. Hit that subscribe button if you guys are new, and drop a comment if you liked it. So yeah, we'll see you in a bit.